All right, I'd like to introduce our next presentation here at the Planet MicroCap Showcase Vancouver in association with Small Cap Discoveries. Now presenting is Leighton Carroll from Baylin Technologies.
All right, thanks guys. So I hate standing behind a podium, so I'm not going to do that. So I've been with Baylin for 3 years and a quarter. I got hired because the company bluntly was in pretty rough shape. The results of the business, so I joined June 21st to 21, and so I got to read the Q2 21 results. The actual operating results for 4 business lines was $21.6 million in revenue, negative 5.3 in adjusted EBITDA, and by the way, we had $40 million in debt. Probably not a great starting point. Okay, it was, you know, the business was unfortunately in a tough spot. I was brought in specifically by the board to turn the company around, get it back to growth, and ideally get us growing again. Okay, it's part of that journey, and this is not in here. It's part of why I'm telling you this. On that journey, there was a commitment by the board that they were going to have to put fresh capital in. In 2021, we did 2 private placements to get runway into the business so that we had the ability to start working on turning it around. Okay, when I joined, we had 4 business units. None of the 4 were profitable in Q2. It was a very challenging time for the business. Okay, we subsequently did a rights offering in 23 that was principally to deal with some of the debt that the company was carrying at the time. And to kind of frame this, so far this sounds like a great story. You know, please keep going. I'd like to hear more. Q2 operating results, we divested 1 business. It was the worst business of the bunch. That business was, and by the way, it was the history of the company, was doing antennas in Samsung mobile phones. Okay? Problem with that is low IP, low pricing power, low margins. Well, we divested that. So everything we have now is headquartered in North America. We have our own intellectual property. We can control how we play in the market, and we have much better pricing power. And you're going to see the story in terms of the improvement in margins. Okay? And the most recent quarter, for the 3 core businesses that we've now placed our bets on, we did $22 million in revenue and did $2.3 million positive adjusted EBITDA. And by the way, we're sub 20 in debt. So it's been quite a journey. And this will kind of tell you what we do, how we did that, and then where we think we're going will be kind of like the punchline of all of this. So Baylin, we do 3 things. We do satellite communications, we do wireless infrastructure antennas, and we do embedded antennas. By the way, we're not just an antenna company. So to understand that, in satellites, we don't make dishes, right? Other people do it, and by, you know, God bless them, it's a low margin business. We don't put things in space. We make high power gear that makes that work. Why is that important? Well, if you're in the satellite space, Starlink has been eating everybody's lunch on the low end, right? In the maritime space, in the aviation space, they've been killing people. And it's a great product. I've got board members who have places in northern Canada, cabins they love to go to. They have wireless connectivity there. It's Starlink. It's a good product. Starlink doesn't do high power application. To give you some examples, the Super Bowl, the Masters golf tournament, the broadcast you see on TV, that's powered by our gear. NASA Artemis lunar space mission, when the lunar modules are going to the moon, communication from the Earth is powered by us. We do a lot of NATO government work, military, non-military, scientific. NASA's a customer, NOAA's a customer. It's a good place to be. Why? Lower competition, high specialization, you can defend your margins, and you can choose how you play and develop unique intellectual property. By the way, the picture up there on the right, that's in Quebec. What you're looking at is about $2.1 million for a classified US DoD application. Nice part of that is it's programmatic. So it can be a bit lumpy on the sales cycle to win those programs. But by the way, there are only 3 to 5 people that we compete with for high power stuff. And by the way, we're doing another 16 of them. And we don't get all the purchasers because that's not how the governments work. That's a good place to be. That's why we position to the high end. wireless infrastructure. This is actually probably one of the biggest parts of the turnaround. And I'll come back to why this matters. But we make antennas that are used by people in the wireless ecosystem. So Rogers, Bell, TELUS, AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, all customers. And this has actually been, to kind of frame this, when I got to this business, the margins in this business line were sub 30 gross profit. We were more than double that in Q2. We got at a certain thing. When I got here, we were trying to be a 5G macro antenna play and talking about 5G macro antennas, which sounds great, except you have to have huge economies of scale and advanced manufacturing if you're going to be able to compete in that space, because everyone's in that space. And guess what? It's a lower margin area. We're doing a turnaround. We had to figure out where can we play with competitive differentiation and a competitive advantage to really drive value quickly in use cases that matter. But here's the punchline. We did that, but I'm gonna come back to that and explain that a little bit. And then we do embedded antennas. So we make custom antennas and we engineer and then we manufacture, and then they're embedded in other people's products. Okay. So top left, that's AT&T and Charter Communications. So if you get your fiber from those guys and you get your wireless gateway from them, a lot of people do. Guess what? The antennas in those are us. So all those customers' Wi-Fi at home, that's us. Okay. In the middle, this thing, that's a body armor camera. We launched that in Q4 of 23. It's been a big success for us. When first responders are out and talking to people or responding to a situation, a lot of them have to turn on that camera. Guess what? If you ever heard of Taser, remember what Tasers were? Right? That company became Axon. They make body armor cameras and lots of public safety gear. The wireless enablement of that device is us. Okay? Kind of cool. On the bottom, that looks like a Volvo, but maybe a little more modern than what you've seen on Volvos. That's the next Volvo full-size SUV. It's called the EX90. It should be for the 2025 model year. The wireless customer experience inside that new model will be us. So we create custom antenna solutions that we then manufacture, which are embedded into other people's products. So one nice thing, and this has been part of the turnaround story in our journey, you can't do this unless what you do works and matters to customers. We have really worked on diversifying our customer base, improving our customer base, and growing our penetration in existing customers. There were names on here that were certainly not here when I got here. And there were names when I got here, bluntly, we were blackballed at. And it hadn't been fixed. Okay? Well, guess what? There are ways to do it. Unfortunately, I built and ran 2 satellite-enabled businesses previously. And my last gig was running a national U.S. wireless engineering and system integration firm. So I had a lot of relationships, and we rebuilt a lot of those relationships, and it is working because our customer diversity has improved as our revenue diversity has improved. So this has been modified to talk about the core businesses, but you can kind of see Q2 of 21 was really bad, right? And I came in at the end of June of that quarter. We got to work on driving growth and driving improvement in our products immediately. Really got to work on selling. What's interesting in this is things were going well, and then Q3 and Q4 of 23 happened. SATCOM was down. Wireless infrastructure went way off the cliff. And even on the embedded space, a lot of manufacturers had overbuilt their stock. So the order volume started, right? Well, wireless infrastructure, let me take that as an example. Down in Q3, further down in Q4. Q1 was also down from Q4, and Q2 was also down from that. Well, we've been growing. Our revenue was up 24% in Q1 of 24 over Q4 of 23 because what we had been working was really starting to take hold, and it mattered to our end customers. So we have actually turned a nice corner in the business. We have gotten back to profitability. And by the way, we're continuing to sell. So the red bars are the end of year backlog for the 3 prior years before there was a leadership transition. If you look at 21, wow, you guys really increased your purchase order volume. Absolutely. Margin profile still wasn't great, Because guess what? You can't fix that fast. We're an equipment OEM. That takes time. As you move from left to right, the quality of the backlog, particularly in terms of the gross margin we're attaining, has improved dramatically. We finished Q2 of 24 at 42% gross profit all in. And by the way, we're still working on improvements. I still need my SATCOM team to be higher, right? Really happy with the other two. I still need better margin attainment in my SATCOM. By the way, I'm not a big fan of debt. You use debt for certain things, but we had an unbelievable amount when I walked in the door. This has been a journey. We've retired a lot of debt. I have signed 13 loan amendments with RBC. That's a lot of fun. And it's in a much better place today. And by the way, the quality of our working capital and the quality of our balance sheet has been improving over this period. Just so I say this, our debt comes due with RBC, which is the vast majority of this. It comes due in January of 25, and we're already in discussions for a material extension. Oops. Capitalization, we're at 151 million shares. Before I walked in here, we were at, or yesterday, I think we closed at 46 cents. We started the year, just to frame this, and this has been a journey. It's understandable. There's been a lot of pressure on the stock. You do 2 private placements and a rights offering, you've added a lot of shares, right? And the amount of volume traded on us was not super high. So our stock price got down to 18 cents at the beginning of. I was actually talking to somebody during the one-on-one, and he pulled us up on our phone. We were trading at 52 cents today. It's a good thing because at least from where I sit, people are starting to realize that there's a growth story here. A lot of the baggage, and Baylin's been around for a while, and there was a lot of noise in the IR space, and it didn't pan out, right? Particularly going back to 2018. Well, 3 years and 3 months in, our business is growing. We're profitable. We're not looking to raise capital to service our debt. We service our debt ourselves with our cash flows. And by the way, some of these markets that I just told you, we're still down. Well, guess what? If we're taking market share in a down market, the concept here is by 25, guess what? Wireless carriers have to start spending because data usage hasn't stopped, continues to increase. The GSMA yesterday came out and said 2023 was the largest growth year in terms of data utilization for wireless networks. Well, what does that mean? You have to deploy more infrastructure. Wireless carriers overspent 21 and 22, really slammed the brakes in 23, and that's continuing in 24. So our expectation will slowly start to come back in 25. I'm not going to tell you it's going to be like, oh my gosh, it's going to be a huge, no. It will be a little higher in 25, and we expect 26 will be a solid year. But if we're taking share and growing as the tide starts to lift, that's a good position for us to be in what we're building. So I wanted to go quickly, tell you about what we're up to. I will go back to one thing because I am proud of this segment. And it's made a big part of the turnaround. I can go. Come on, one more. This is the business that has had the biggest catalyst for us, and maybe it's worth talking about. So wireless infrastructure. When we have had to lean in and develop unique competitive advantage, and unique competitive advantage also for us means patented technology that other people don't have. These are what I call these our halo products. We have a big product line, okay? This sucker, that's a DAS antenna. It's an in-building wireless antenna. It is hotel room card thin, and it broadcasts from 600 megahertz to 4.2 gigahertz. We have sold thousands of these. Well, who uses them? We go to Hudson Yards. Those are there in New York. If you go to MGM casinos, all of their properties, that's all they want to use. Why? When aesthetics matter and they need a good in-building wireless coverage, an antenna that is that thick that works really well, guess what? And it's patented. We're really differentiated. That opens a lot of doors for us. The next product, that's called a multi-beam. Right, and I can talk to depth about RF and what we do there. But what you should know is that product is really uniquely differentiated for dense traffic, high capacity, high throughput scenario. Why does that matter? Well, we never sold into Europe. right? And I like to think I'm a nice guy. I can't go to Europe and say, hey, my name is Leighton. I'd like to sell you some antennas. I think there are people there who do that, right? Nokia, Ericsson, Amphenol, maybe. Well, guess what? Top right picture, that's a Harry Styles concert in Europe with over 80,000 people in a tight space. One of our antennas covered that, and the carrier was raving about it. Vodafone is now a customer. Telecom Italia is now a customer. We're invited to RFPs with Deutsche Telekom and Orange. That didn't used to happen. How does that happen? We have differentiated technology. By the way, super patented. We're the only ones who have this in this form factor at this price point because we have unique intellectual property. That sucker, that's a 2-inch diameter whip. Okay? Why does that matter? Well, you don't actually beat someone. That's the Empire State Building. You go to Manhattan, we're the only antennas there because New York cares about the aesthetics. Crown Castle awarded us Manhattan and all 5 boroughs exclusively for small cells because of the quality of our small cell products and the relationships we have with AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile. There's a lot more behind that, but that's a great product, and it's opened a bunch of doors for us. And then we have a really strong stadium portfolio. So that's Arrowhead Stadium. That is Rocket Mortgage Arena, the NBA facility. We're in those. Yesterday morning, we did a press release. University of Alabama football stadium, 100,000 people. They outfitted it with our stadium antennas and our multi-beams to improve their coverage. Guess what? There are a lot more stadiums that are having coverage problems worldwide. Tottenham Hotspur, Crystal Palace, we're now in those stadiums. We were never in Europe. That's happening. Final thing, and kind of a catalyst for the future that I get excited about, we have a derivative of that multi-beam. So have you ever been on a highway and you're driving somewhere and then all of a sudden your cell coverage goes out and you're like, I knew I had coverage here before, but it's not working. Well, why is that? Guess what? Data usage keeps going up. Cellular capacity is relatively finite and spectrum's finite. As capacity increases on those networks, the amount of spectrum that is being used, it literally starts to contract a little bit more towards the center because of that usage pattern. It's called cell edge exhaustion. Every carrier has it. We have a derivative technology of that. We have our prototype coming out in about a month or so, and it will be commercial in mid-year 25. We've gone out and talked about, and by the way, we've already patented the derivative of this. We've talked to multiple carriers about it. We have 7 carriers who have asked, they want a trial. As soon as it's out, we want it. Period. Okay, why is that interesting? That never happens. Particularly at a company at the size of ours, where they say, that will do exactly what, if that does what you're saying it will do, we want to trial that because that solves a real problem for us. Give you a sense of that, AT&T and Verizon have 80,000 cell towers apiece. That's not an urban play. But half of their portfolio is going to be outside of suburban to rural. That's interesting. That's an interesting market opportunity. We get it, and this is where I caveat it. If we get the technology right, if we get the pricing right, we get the economics right, that will be our next growth catalyst. Kind of fun. So Baylin's been a journey and a lot of fun. Thrilled I've got really smart people in Montreal and Ottawa and Toronto, as well as across the U.S. and overseas. And it's been a fun ride. Happy to take questions. Oh, my clicker.
What's your fastest growing unit?
Infrastructure. Infrastructure, without question. When I joined, it was a unit that had never lived up to its potential. And to be honest, it was trying to do things it shouldn't be doing. And its customer focus, its go-to-market strategy, in my opinion, was a bit flawed. We overhauled that. We retired some stuff, launched multiple new products. It's the one that has the biggest growth potential of the bunch. Embedded, it grows, it'll go out like this, but it grows about 10% linearly a year. So, and it's a nice business and now nicely, solidly profitable. Satcom's continuing to grow. We win some of the bigger programmatic opportunities. It could actually grow, but we have to win those. Satcom, my biggest concern is I need to get a better margin profile within that product set, and we're doing things to modernize it that will help us improve our manufacturability simplify supply chain and improve margins. But in terms of pure play growth, it's infrastructure.
So is the growth going to come from the products, or are you going to be adding products?
It's a combination of new products as well as penetrating several markets where we haven't. Look, we were never in Europe. I'm still not satisfied with it. It's great we sold to Vodafone. It's great Telecom Italia and other carriers in Europe. They're systems integrators. They're distributors in Europe. We're still early innings on our European expansion there. That's an opportunity. And then, when I got here, infrastructure as an example, we were doing about 18 new products a year. We're probably going to pump out 30 this year. And by the way, with the same staff, we've gotten a lot more efficient.
Do you segment your revenue? And if so, what is like the difference in margin profile?
So we don't publicly report, but a way to think of us is because of the growth in some of our businesses, we're about 40-30-30 SATCOM to the other two. All in, we were about 42%. Infrastructure is far and away the highest margin business, did not used to be that. The embedded business is pretty close to the number you see, and SATCOM's a little less than that.
And your revenues, like, how much visibility do you have, or like how recurring are your revenues?
So, well, let me answer it this way. So last year, the three core businesses, we did $74 million. We're expecting to be 80 to 82 this year. We have, it depends on the business, right? So SATCOM, particularly that Whopping amplifier I talked about, well, guess what? That takes a while to produce. So SATCOM will have a high PO volume. Infrastructure, we're going 90 days to 90 days most of the time. The embedded side will have POs for a while. But as I'm talking to you, I think we're running around $34-35 million in purchase orders, and we've been in a good place there. I'd like to get it durably above 40, but from when I started to where we are now, being in the 30s with a much better margin profile, I'm happy.
Is there like the life cycle of the products? Like, do they have to repurchase every 2 years, every 5, 10 years?
No, fair question. So in SATCOM, the amplifiers, some of those suckers are 10, 12 years old in terms of technical design. Now, we are refreshing it, but that's because we're refreshing to add additional features and to take market share, not because we have to replace it. Within the embedded space, those typical programs like that body armor camera, it's about a 3-year program. We're already working with Axon on the next iteration of that. Within wireless infrastructure, a lot of those antennas will be 5 years old. And by the way, we've got products in the embedded side for walkie-talkies. The engineering was done on that in 2004, and we're still selling them at good margins. So it can be wild, but infrastructure, those products tend to last 5 to 10 years. And by the way, we're launching new products, and new cellular frequencies are also coming out, and will continue to come out, and that's good for us.
Final question. You're going to pump out 30 new products. Do you invest mostly like through R&D, or do you have a heavy CapEx spend?
I would argue that in terms of our CapEx, we've actually gotten really efficient. It's mainly R&D, and R&D we're probably running around 12%, maybe 13% total. We've got a really tight R&D team. To be honest, I like having, for example, in infrastructure, having my engineering in Canada. I get great support from the Canadian government. I get efficiency and resources, and I've got really good talent.
So 12% of this year's revenue, like what was that in 21?
It was higher. I don't know the number off the top. And when I walked in the door, it was higher, but that was different.
You expect that to be relatively flat, like revenues will grow a lot quicker than you're going to grow.
I think revenue will grow up, and I think our percentage of revenue, the actual total dollar spend is not going to keep proportionate.
Thank you. What is your cost of debt, like interest rate, and what do you think you'll be able to refinance at?
So we're with RBC. We're a little north of 11%. We have the opportunity to extend. RBC has actually been a pretty decent partner to us and patient. And we can extend, and to be honest, I think we'll probably extend for a year with the current structure. Conversely, with the improvement in profitability and the improvement in the balance sheet and the improvement in what our working capital looks like, it opens up the opportunity for third-party lending. And then with obviously interest rates mollifying, that's going to be good for us. We survived the storm that the high interest rate environment has caused for the business the past few years. Cool. Guys, I appreciate the time. Root for Baylin. It's been a heck of a ride, and I think our best is still in front of us. Appreciate it.